It's time to vote, Texas. I'm KVUE Political Director Ashley Goodo. Election Day is this Tuesday, May 26th. To help you get ready to cast your ballot, we're bringing you interviews with the candidates going head-to-head in runoff races. Democrats have some pretty key races on the ballot, including the runoff for Attorney General. Back in March, State Senator Nathan Johnson from Dallas was close to clinching the party's nomination, getting 48% of the vote in a three-man race. He's facing off against former Galveston Mayor and Attorney Joe Jaworski, who ended the night with 26% of the vote. First, we'll hear from Joe Jaworski. Mr. Jaworski, thank you for taking some time out to talk with us.
You bet, Ashley. Great to be back with you.
You know, heading to this May runoff election, what would you say is the biggest difference between you and your opponent in this race?
Well, the runoff has accentuated our differences. I am the certified progressive candidate with a background as a former mayor. So I come from local government, not the deal-making Texas Senate where Dan Patrick has infected everybody with his deal-making, even the Democrats, I'm afraid. And I'm also a 35-year trial lawyer, and people are now thinking more in terms of what lawyer can we get to be the Attorney General for 32 million Texans. And I will tell you, Ashley, of the four men standing, the two Republicans and the two Democrats, I am the one with the greatest trial experience. And so I also want to say that this is a family affair. This is the Democratic primary runoff. Every voter is going to be intentional, and I think that favors me to be the nominee come May 26th.
You talk about your trial experience. You know, if you do become the Attorney General of Texas, what's your top priority moving forward?
Well, you know, a lot of people ask, what are you going to do the first day, the first week? And so I think the top priority is going to be to go down the list of all the existing lawsuits that Ken Paxton has filed and dismiss them, or in cases where he's appeared after someone else filed it, probably reversing the state's position. For example, on the Texas DREAM Act, you know, 25 years of excellent education policy where dreamers are receiving in-state tuition as long as they graduated from a Texas high school and had been there at least 3 years. Ken Paxton made that go away by colluding with then United States Attorney General Pam Bondi. That lawsuit right now, Ashley, is in the federal courts. On day one, we can reverse the state's position in support of the 25-year legislative educational policy and return sanity. So attorneys can do good things in court, and that's what I intend to do day one, week one, and for the whole 4-year term.
You say you want to go down the list and reverse or pause all of them. Is there at least one, maybe a few lawsuits that Texas is involved in right now that you would support?
Well, I've tried to find something to keep from the Paxton administration. And Ashley, the closest thing I've been able to come up with is maybe a few relics of his dastardly past, and we can create a small little museum at the Office of Attorney General so that when children and students come to see, they'll know how not to behave. I think future generations need to be reminded that there was once a mean persecutorial government, and we're going to be doing away with that when Democrats take over.
You know, obviously, we see, particularly when a Democrat is in office, our Republican attorneys general filing lawsuits against the administration. Do you anticipate that you will be doing a lot of filings against the Trump administration if you are elected Attorney General?
Well, Ashley, I think the best way to describe my relationship with the Trump administration will be one word: hostile. I mean, let's be honest with each other. The president is not doing well, physically or mentally, and it's a very unstable administration. I do not like the way things are going at all. And so when 2026 is done and the elections are finished, I have a feeling with the 2 years left, he's going to be like a caged animal. And we need to make sure that democracy is upheld. The 250th anniversary of the United States of America is this summer, and this guy's our president. So let Democratic attorneys general band together, protect the Constitution, protect the Bill of Rights, and let's restore decency to government again. You know, this is almost like the end of the Red Scare. All the Republicans can come up with right now is, yes, Mr. Trump. And I remember a Republican Party that actually stood on principle not that long ago. Right now, I think Democrats have to lead, and we'll wait for the Republicans to return to sanity. But in the meantime, Texas has bigger things to do than to do what Mr. Trump says.
You know, the top thing that the Texas Attorney General is charged with doing is defending the laws of the state. That means you will have to defend laws that were passed by a Republican legislature. How are you going to, you know, weigh that? How are you going to do that and walk that through given your position?
Well, again, the Attorney General is unique in that it is a legal officer. And those of us who have taken the time to go to law school and study the bar exam and be sworn in by the Supreme Court of Texas know that we have duties as officers of the court. So, Ashley, on those matters where I'll be in state or federal court, I owe a duty of candor to the judge. And if there is a position that is literally frivolous, and that is a legal term that means not on any basis of understood law, then I have a duty to tell the court that. So if there is a law that the Texas legislature passed from the world of politics, and Ken Paxton was their lawyer all during the last 30 years, Greg Abbott before him, and John Cornyn briefly, if Republican attorneys general let these unconstitutional laws pass, well, I may have a different viewpoint on things. So Ashley, what I'm saying is there may be occasions where I take a contrary position, and as an officer of the court, I should.
What do you feel like is the #1 job of the Attorney General of Texas?
Well, it is to represent 32 million Texans. And what we've seen over the last 3 decades is Republicans representing their party and their re-election interests. I'm going to give you an example of something where I think I can help everybody. Yes, I'm a Democrat. Yes, I'm running as a Democrat. But imagine an Attorney General who seeks to register over 2 million high school seniors over a 4-year term. I mean, that's actually the law, and it's just not being followed. Texas Election Code 13.046D, as in David, requires every principal in the state of Texas, public or private schools, to offer registration to every senior. Well, there's over 500,000 who graduate every May, and they're just not being offered registration. What if an Attorney General said, look, I don't care how you vote once you get registered, that's for you to decide, but I'm going to get you registered, and the voice of the people will be expanded. That, for example, is what a good lawyer should do for his client.
You know, there's a lot of conversation among Republicans right now about an effort and, you know, a desire to want to challenge the Supreme Court ruling that said basically Texas and therefore other states have to fund public education for students for children who come here regardless of their immigration status. Obviously talking about Playa versus Doe. Tell me your thoughts on, you know, this particular conversation that's happening, and if you are elected Attorney General, how you're going to navigate that.
You're right, Ashley. That's Plyler versus Doe, a 1982 United States Supreme Court decision. And it's good policy that children, regardless of their immigration or documentation status, should be educated. First off, over my dead body, they're going to change that. And so I think it's really important that voters know that I, Joe Jaworski, will stand firm and defend that excellent precedent. I know the Supreme Court these days can just go ahead and change things just because they feel like it, but I don't intend to be part of that. And I do think that there are great policy reasons why even Republicans should want every young person educated. And Texas, of course, being one of the larger and largest in population states, just behind California, and soon that may change, Ashley. But we are leaders. Everyone knows that when school books are made for Texas public school systems, they often find their way into other states just through equity of scale. And so we ought to be a leader on education. And I call on Congress, Ashley, while you're at it, to do something, finally get off the couch and repair our broken immigration system. Immigration is a wonderful American value, and Congress ought to treat it that way.
You know, when we look back to March and voter turnout, the response from voters, you came in second in this race. Senator Johnson is confident that he's going to win on May 26th and that he can win this election outright. You know, I really want you to give our voters some thoughts, some final thoughts about why they should elect you over him, your strategy for winning in May.
Well, first off, 52% of all voters on March 3rd voted for someone other than Senator Johnson. And he's acting as if the election's already over. And, you know, that's his choice. I, on the other hand, am racing toward the finish line. And I think that this family affair, as I call it, this Democratic primary runoff, favors the progressive candidate, which clearly is myself. I don't even think Senator Johnson contests that notion. But the fact is, a Democrat needs to be a fighter, not a deal maker. I am afraid that Senator Johnson comes from the world of Dan Patrick's Senate, where deals are made on the other side of the barbed wire fence. And Senator Johnson, unfortunately, has a pretty rough record from even the most recent legislative session, banning pride flags, voting to limit SNAP benefits, voting to suppress free speech in the Texas Campus Security Act, which was found unconstitutional by an Austin federal judge, and he voted to, put Proposition 16 on the November 2025 ballot. Actually, that's the proposition that clarified you had to be an American citizen to vote. Well, we knew that already. And so the question voters need to ask is, why is Senator Johnson, in his capacity as a senator, giving oxygen to the MAGA agenda? Well, look, there's only so much damage you can do as one of 31 senators. But when you're the Attorney General, you stand alone. And so voters need to be very careful to elect a local experienced official like myself, a full-time lawyer. I'm the only one of the four right now standing to run for Attorney General that is a full-time lawyer, and a progressive. So those are my reasons why I'm the clear choice. And I think I can win in November, even above all. And I think it's important that there be balance in Texas government, and it's time for Democrats to lead again, Ashley.
Okay, Mr. Jaworski, is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, just remember, folks, that true leadership looks like this. I'll never lie to you. I can't be bought. In Texas, I have your back. I'm asking for your vote.
Now, Senator Nathan Johnson makes his case to voters. Senator Johnson, thank you so much for being here.
Good to see you again, Ashley.
All right, heading to the May runoff election, what do you want folks to know about the main difference between you and your opponent in this race?
I think you absolutely are going to need your best candidate in November. There's a fantastic opportunity for a Democrat to take multiple statewide offices, but the Attorney General's office in particular is critically important to the whole country right now. I do have a track record of beating incumbent right-wing Republicans. That's what I'm going to be going up against in November. I think put your trust in somebody you know can win the race. And then secondly, who is going to do a good job in office? And I think running the Attorney General's office the way it has to be run is going to require political skills honed over time. The Attorney General's office has been kind of hyper-partisanized, and we want to get rid of that. But it will always operate in a very political environment. And to really be effective, you're going to have to understand that environment. And 8 years of serving in the Texas legislature, of fighting with Republicans, of working with Republicans, of figuring out, when's time to throw a punch, when's time to lend a hand. That kind of stuff comes through experience. So go with somebody who can win the election and has the experience to deliver while they're in office.
You say it's become a politicized office. What do you feel like it should be focusing on, the Attorney General of Texas?
The Constitution charges it with two basic things. You represent the state, the interests of the state, and secondly, you're policing corporations, and this is in the Constitution, to make sure they're not exceeding their powers. And in modern times, what it means for corporations to exceed their powers is violating violating state and federal antitrust laws, violating consumer protection laws, taking control of the levers of government, which is called corruption. The Attorney General's office should be paying attention to those kinds of things, because that's the place where you stop trusting your own government, you stop trusting business, and business can take advantage of you if there's not somebody in there enforcing the rules. That kind of work has been done under every Attorney General, including even in Paxton's office sometimes, but when you're running a political theater, you don't have the resources to do the job that you're supposed to do. I plan on doing those things, making sure people's rights are protected, that they're not scammed, that their data is not being harvested, and then working with district attorneys to make sure that streets are safe. Not working against district attorneys like Ken Paxton is doing, but working with them to use the massive resources and expertise that the Attorney General's office has. And then finally, rooting out political corruption. Don't participate in it, get rid of it. All of those things are central to the office. It's part of our tradition. It's part of the constitutional charge. It's not being done. It is what's going to get done when I'm in office.
I want to talk to you, though, about, the Attorney General's office we've seen year after year, really challenge some of the legislation that comes out of Washington, D.C., right? And obviously, with a Republican Attorney General, largely that charge, comes as challenging Democratic policies. Do you see, do you anticipate that you would be continuing that? You'd be a Democrat working under a Republican? Would we just be suing the Trump administration for everything that every policy that you may not agree with?
It's certainly not about whether I agree with the policy. The question is whether or not the presidential administration is violating the American Constitution, violating federal law, violating Texans' rights, individual civil rights, voting rights, human rights, violating the Administrative Procedures Act, violating the Environmental Protection Act. The Trump administration has a choice to make. They can either get sued by me frequently or they can stop breaking the law. There are 24 Democratic attorneys general. They have blocked 41 illegal Trump actions, and that's just being selective, and that's just winning in courts with Trump-appointed judges. I do not want to have to spend my time suing the Trump administration, but I absolutely will spend time and resources suing the Trump administration when they're harming the people of my state.
There's a conversation happening now, and one of the Republican opponents in this race has made this a priority, and that's talking about whether or not Texas and other states will challenge a Supreme Court decision when it comes to educating immigrant children. If you are the Attorney General of Texas, what's your take on that fight that we see bubbling up?
My take is that those people have a misunderstanding of what the Attorney General's office is for. The state Attorney General's office is not supposed to be a national battering ram to go back and hunt through Supreme Court precedent and say, my voting base doesn't like this, therefore I'm going to lead the charge against it. There will be private litigation challenging Supreme Court holdings across the spectrum. I will take a position on behalf of the state of Texas, as the Attorney General on the state of Texas, that upholds and adheres with the Constitution. We all have our bent, we all have an ideology, but I don't think the Attorney General's office is supposed to be an ideological battering ram. We've got a child support system that we have to administer through the Attorney General's office. We have environmental regulations that make sure our kids don't miss school because the air is so dirty that they have asthma, and their parents get fired when they have to leave work to pick them up. The Attorney General has a role to play in all of that. We're not supposed to be going to try to invalidate Plyler versus Doe, which is the Supreme Court precedent that says the state of Texas and every other state has to provide a free public education to the students of undocumented immigrants, the same as they have to for American citizen children. That's a policy of the state that has been adhered to and respected and benefited this state for a generation. Republican and Democrat legislatures have agreed that that's not only the law, it's good policy. Why would you take the office, stop doing what you're supposed to be doing, and go contrary to established Supreme Court law that's also bad policy? I think they are misunderstanding the job, and I wholly disagree with their approach.
How do you balance, though, that, right? Saying, like, our job is to mainly focus on what the Constitution says versus, comments that you just made about, I will sue the Trump administration if they are violating these laws. Where's the line for you?
I mean, that's the magic of being a lawyer. That's why we go to law school. And in fact, as legislators, we always say, well, that's a slippery slope. We can't do that. We are in the business of drawing lines. And it's hard work. I mean, that's really why this job is a serious job, and it isn't for people who put crazy stuff on flyers to send to your mailbox. It's for people who can think. It's why there's 800 attorneys in the Attorney General's office, because we put sharp, serious public servant minds on each of these issues, and we study them. Where is the line? It's something we have to make an independent call every time. Sometimes it's clearer than others. Sometimes there is a flagrant violation of the Constitution, and those are easy, those are more fun. It's easier to get mad about, they're easier to win. But where you really prove your worth is the hard questions. And I commit to doing everything I can to answer those questions the right way, and not in a way that's just done for political theater.
Your top priority if you do become the Attorney General is what?
Number one, rebuild the place. It has been sapped of talent. It's been sapped of a civic-spirited corporate culture. People do not want to work under Ken Paxton. They're not going to want to work under a Mays Middleton or a Chip Roy administration, because good public servants aren't there to put on a show to please a right-wing wheels-off president. And it's not surprising that a lot of really good people, and some conservative, some progressive, have left the Attorney General's office. I'm one person, I'll be at the helm, but there's a lot of decisions that are made and a lot of work that has to be done that relies on the excellent work and enthusiasm and passions of people of that office. My number one job is to get great people in the office.
You know, if you are able to come out victorious in this May runoff, what's the strategy for going against a Mays Middleton, a Chip Roy, for, a position that has not seen a Democrat lead in decades?
Yeah, no Democrat has won the Attorney General's office in 3 decades. No Democrat had won Senate District 16 in 32 years when I won that seat. I'm not running because I think it's cute to move the needle. I plan to win. I intend to win. I think we are going to win. The strategy for that is to get more votes than the other guy. The way you do that is it really comes down to 3 pieces of the electorate. There are people who typically vote Democratic. There are people who typically vote Republican. There are people who ain't really sure how they're going to vote any given election cycle. And I think we can run a campaign this cycle with the national tailwinds that Democrats have, in contrast to the headwinds they faced the last 3 electoral cycles. You take the force of those tailwinds and energy among Democrats, partly because of how angry they are at all the bad stuff that's being done, together with the belief that they can win, you will see a surge in Democratic voters. It's why we've seen local elections flipping from Republican to Democrat around the state in real time. Right now, this is happening. Secondly, Republican crossover. Republicans are disgusted with what their own party is doing. And they don't want to call themselves Democrats, perhaps, but they will vote for a Democrat. Because the Democrats right now are the ones who have vision, who have answers to questions, who are taking responsibility for government. There will be Republican crossover. In that middle, I think you're going to see centrist voters breaking 2-1, 3-1, 4-1 for good quality, serious Democrats. I don't think it's even going to be that close, Ashley. I think I can win. I think others can win by several points. And time will tell, but I plan to win this race by multiple points.
All right. Final thoughts for our viewers on why they should elect you on May 26th?
Because Texas has so many advantages right now. I feel like we have an obligation to be a great state, to lead the nation in all sorts of things, culturally, scientifically, educationally. There's no reason we should not be. Everyone says number one, number one. I mean, number one, how about we just take a noble leadership position? We should. We have the resources. We have those advantages. I don't want to see it squandered, and I don't think Texans want to see it squandered. They should vote for me in this election because I hope they'll see in me a leader that can make sure that government is working well for them. That's what we need right now. And I think people are hungry to believe that the Attorney General's office is on their side. At the end of this campaign, I think they're going to know that I am on their side, and that whoever comes out of the Republican primary, they are representing the special interest of a right-wing think tank in Washington, D.C., and that's not representing Texas, and it's not realizing our potential as a people and as a state.
Remember, Election Day is May 26th, and after the polls close, join us here on KVUE Plus for live results and analysis starting at 8 p.m. Election night. Vote, Texas.